that even if they win every single other argument in this entire round, they still vote app because they dropped a voter as an instant ballot for the app. And extended interpretation, they must allow us to weigh the impact of our app. When they say that the K is a prerequisite, they lose the entire 1AC, they lose the entire app. We allow for both policy and K arguments to weigh on the same level. That's better for focused education and limits and grounds. And explore the wording evidence. Their K is impotent and allows structures that criticize to stay in place. That takes out their alt. Their alt does not solve for anything. And it turns their entire K because there is nothing to vote for on that flow. Because it says that their K, not only does it not solve for anything, it actually does the things they're trying to solve for. They can't solve for anything, and attempting to solve for it causes the very impacts that they're trying to solve. And it's in Wagner 3. Extinction precedes ontology. Even if they prove that all their impacts are true and they're all somehow solved, for them it doesn't matter because their impact precedes them. We have to deal with stuff that kills the entire planet before we can deal with other things. Their K impacts can be dealt with later. They don't evaluate them first because if you do that, they'll end up dead, and you can have ontology or discourse. You can't have ontology or discourse if you're dead. Death comes first. They say they didn't make a root cause of war argument, but they did. They said that root cause of violence and extinction is our app and things we say in our app, but that is utterly refuted by our Jabbery 96 evidence, and that takes out all their impacts on this K. They also said that we didn't answer ontology, but we did twice. We answered our 0 and 2 evidence that says philosophical approaches to political discourse are undesirable because they prioritize critical over action. And this disavows any attempt to actually fix concrete problems and create a vicious cycle where chief overturns action entirely paralyzes change. They don't solve for anything. They paralyze the cycle where we're actually able to solve for things. They stop change, they stop action, and they make actual ways of solving for any of the problems of the world unable to work. And we also did it in our Wagner 3 evidence that I extended previously that said extinction precedes ontology. We answered ontology twice and saying that extinction precedes it, and that it's and that ontology arguments are bad because they don't solve for anything. And on value of life, they want to solve for the value of life, but the only way to actually solve for that is with a public participation, that's a transportation planning capacity building programs, and this went unrefuted. If they actually want to solve for their impacts, they want to solve for their arguments, they want to solve the value of life and solve for their impact, solve for their scenarios, then they have got to have public participation, they have to have public debate, they have to have policy engagement, they have to have our framework, which their K does not allow for. Saying the K is a prerequisite, takes out a framework that doesn't allow for this. And then onto the argument about data. The only evidence they have on anything in data is the flyby evidence. We've proven time and time again it is not good. That's the, what is the evidence? Oh yeah, that's the Oslin and what? There's the Oslin strain 10 evidence that says that specifically indicts Flyberg because he kicks out everything that he should have used to actually make these data, these projects. If anything contradicts the statements he was trying to make, he threw it out. That makes everything he says completely irrelevant, not something you should evaluate at all. And even if they totally won on this argument, it doesn't even close to take out our entire case, which they said it did. All it would do is prove that maybe some of our numbers were slightly off. We don't get all of our numbers from the Fed for one, and the fact is that even if there is some suspicion of the quality of the evidence